Davos, a sleepy yet incredibly expensive and prestigious village in the Swiss Alps, usually frequented by skiers, snowboarders, and anyone else with enough money for a posh chalet. But every year, Davos is transformed into the most heavily armed and defended non-military base in the world, as every global elite you can imagine flies to Davos in their private jets. These elites gather to brainstorm and discuss ideas on how to fix the world, and we're just forced to watch. But every single year, the mask slips and the World Economic Forum accidentally reveals something they didn't mean to. This year is no different. The elites gathered and they started to plot, they virtue signaled, and every legacy media outlet in the world made sure to tell us how that's a good thing. The problem is that now we're paying attention, now we're listening to what they're telling us, and things are starting to look incredibly sinister. The essence of their plan has been revealed, it's already in full swing. I will be called a conspiracy theorist for even mentioning this event, but fear not, because my sources are the World Economic Forum themselves. Their own websites, their own articles, even their own words. Now on the surface, the WEF seems like just a random NGO adamant on cementing its place in history. The agenda for their meeting this year? Well, the cost of living crisis that's been seen all over the world, the climate crisis which has been rammed down our throats as gas prices soared, and the Ukraine crisis that completely dominated everything during 2022. But what exactly are they saying today? Well, where better to look than a document on their website titled The WEF Annual Meeting, January 2023. First on the list of urgency is the energy crisis, the food crisis, and the context of a new system for energy, climate, and nature. They go on to say some typical cookie cutter stuff, transitioning into green energy goes hand in hand with fighting climate change, that this global energy transition is already on its way, but it needs to go further. Next on the docket is the problem of high inflation, low growth, and high debt in our economies today. Again, nothing groundbreaking. We're all well aware of how poorly our economies are doing, how over-leveraged our governments are and institutions, and that inflation is bad for our wallets. Then comes the fourth industrial revolution, social unrest, and finally, geopolitical risks that we're facing today. As I said, nothing groundbreaking, but that's where things start to change and the mask starts to slip. When talking about climate change, the WEF actually focused on the fact that they don't want us to care about rising energy prices, as they basically said we should ignore this ongoing crisis and instead go further into green energy, despite the fact that's one of the reasons this crisis exists. Now, why would they want us to be more reliant on energy sources that they control, even if it goes against our best interests? Well, I couldn't possibly say, at least not here on YouTube. Then, when talking about the awful recession, insane inflation, and the huge levels of debt destroying our economy, they say we need to refashion the economic agenda, of course, in the way that they want it reset. I mean, rebuilt, of course. Next, when it comes to investing into this new system they want built, they state how we need to realize stakeholder capitalism, which is an economic model literally invented by the World Economic Forum. What does it consist of? Well, it's supposed to be about allowing ordinary average people a say in how the businesses they use operate, which sounds nice on the surface, except it wouldn't be you gaining a stake, it would be the World Economic Forum and other governments gaining a stake on your behalf. Suddenly, it starts to become clear what this agenda is really all about. It's about redistributing control away from you and towards them, but the evidence doesn't stop there. Sadia Zahidi, the World Economic Forum's managing director, did an interview with Bloomberg, which Bloomberg has now scrubbed from the internet, but the transcript remained. She said that very few leaders in today's generation have been through these kind of traditional risks around food and energy, while at the same time battling what's coming up in terms of debt, what's coming up in terms of climate. And so what is the solution according to her and the WEF? We're going to need a sort of new type of leadership that is much more agile. Maybe she just means one that doesn't have to pay attention to what voters want. It seems they're saying the quiet bit out loud that our forms of governance and leadership needs to change. She's saying that our democracies are not suitable anymore because the world is just too chaotic. The only solution, according to the WEF, is to just let them take charge, let them take control. But what is the suspected grand plan of the World Economic Forum then? Well, it started with the pandemic and the lockdowns, as that set our economies on a collision course with themselves. We spent trillions of dollars keeping things chugging along while no one was actually working or creating the wealth to push this world around. This was all funded by insane money printing, and as we all know, when you triple the number of dollars in an economy, inflation soars. Now we're in the process of the fight against inflation, with the Fed and every other central bank raising rates and pulling capital back in, making a recession at this point guaranteed. That's where we are today, and the people responsible for these events, the central bankers, the politicians, the billionaires and media moguls who pushed for lockdowns, stimulus checks and then rate hikes, well, they're all intimately linked to the World Economic Forum, and every year they fly on over to speak behind closed doors. As for what will happen next, well, no one really knows, but from my point of view, the economy is already on the brink, and that will be the first thing to go. Jobs will be lost, businesses will go down, and homes will be repossessed, and the government will jump to the rescue, turn the money printers back on, and try to spend its way out of this mess. But every time quantitative easing has been used, it's been less and less effective, so this time around, it simply won't work. The recession will continue along with heightened inflation, and they will evolve into a depression, and this is where the Great Reset takes place. These Davos elites pop their heads up and say, "Don't worry, we have a solution. We can rebuild society in a way to fix this mess and ensure it never happens again. We just have to take control." Now, to clarify, I don't know that this is going to happen, but this is what all the signs point to. Unfortunately, Davos is far less transparent than the media would have you believe. We don't know what happens or what is discussed between these elites over breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We don't know what they say when the microphones and cameras are switched off, but there are some simple, irrefutable facts about this event that no one can deny. Every year, the most powerful and influential people the world has ever seen fly into this small town in Switzerland upon their 1,000 private jets. CO2 emissions during this period literally quadrupled this year purely because of the elites in their planes, and yet we're expected to believe them when they claim that climate change is the single greatest problem facing humanity and that they're gathering to try and solve that problem. A ticket to attend this week-long event cost up to $600,000 in the past, which ensured that no one who isn't fantastically rich could ever attend. But that drew some criticism, so instead they changed the format to invite only, meaning that even if you're rich enough, you still can't attend. These global elites meet and talk with each other behind closed doors and only reveal to us what they want to reveal. Political enemies who are supposed to give us options in our democracy often go together as if they were actually close friends, and when a politician doesn't attend Davos, like the current Prime Minister of the UK Rishi Sunak, he's attacked by his opposition party, his own party, and the media. Police in Switzerland find themselves badged with the World Economic Forum's logo, and they're given the express command to do as they're told by this weird non-governmental organization. Every year, legacy media outlets put out hundreds of fact checks correcting the narrative and claiming that yes, while Swiss police do wear special badges that say World Economic Forum Police, that apparently doesn't mean anything untoward. 5,000 military and police protect Davos from the Great Unwashed, and access is determined by a fingerprint scan. No one can really explain where the World Economic Forum came from or why it's so influential, and we also have no real idea who Klaus Schwab, the person in charge here, really is, or how he came to head this global monster. No one within the World Economic Forum is elected into their positions of authority. No one is accountable to any voter in any country around the world. And yet our political leaders all go here together and they discuss policy with each other. Their voters don't get any kind of say as to whether or not they go. To top it all off, every single legacy media outlet in the world defends this charade and calls anyone who asks even a single question a conspiracy theorist. Ron DeSantis speaks out against this cartel, and Forbes come to their master's rescue. In the past, we've literally been told by the World Economic Forum that we will own nothing and be happy. Oh, by the way, that video has now been scrubbed from the internet, and posting it can get you banned on YouTube. But still, to this day, there is an entire page on the World Economic Forum's website dedicated to what they call the Great Reset. A couple of years ago, when the WEF posted an inspirational video telling us about their Great Reset, it was bombarded by 86,000 dislikes on YouTube. So what did YouTube do? they hid the dislike button for every single person. Search the WEF or World Economic Forum here on YouTube and you won't be shown one of the thousands of different videos made by independent people like me and you with millions of views. No, you'll be shown puff pieces with 1,000 views made by the WEF themselves and their legacy media puppets. Yes, it is true that I don't actually know what happens behind closed doors in Davos, and yes, it's true that I have speculated about what their plans actually are. But it's also true that this entire cabal is incredibly worrying, that the global elites are clearly planning something, and that the World Economic Forum is center to it all. Sadly, there is actually so much more here on YouTube that I'm just not able to show you, or else I'll just be demonetized and banned. But in exactly 7 days, I'll be sending an email out on my free newsletter Stoic Markets, which will go so much deeper into this rabbit hole and expose the individuals behind this cabal. It's totally 100% free, but you will learn something truly invaluable. You can unsubscribe anytime you want, or if you just want to hear about how BlackRock, the most powerful financial institution the world has ever seen, plans to take over in 2023, then this video is perfect for you.